Hey y'all, and welcome to PolitiBrawl. My name is Brian, and Greg Gutfeld nearly makes Jessica Tarlov cry when she says something outlandish about Charlie Kirk. This might have ended her career. Let's dive in.
Yes, we don't need it. What is interesting here is why is only this happening on the left and not the right? That's all we need to know. There's absolutely no cognitive...
What about Melissa Hortman that we just talked about?
You want to talk about Melissa Hortman? Did you know her name before it happened? None of us did. None of us were spending every single day talking about Mrs. Hortman. I never heard of her until after she died.
She doesn't matter?
Don't play that bullshit with me. You know what I'm saying is there was no demonization, amplification about that woman before she died. It was a specific crime against her by somebody who knew her. The same. Now you could bring up Josh Shapiro, but then you will not bring up, for example, that was a pro-Palestine person. So don't use your what about this? The fact of the matter is the both sides argument not only doesn't fly, we don't care. We don't care about your both sides argument. That shit is dead. For one thing, there is no cognitive dissonance on our side. On your side, your beliefs do not match reality, so you're coming up with these rationalizations like, what about this or what about that? We're not doing that because we saw it happen. We saw a young, bright man assassinated, and we know who did it. We are not coming up with rationalizations. We are calm, we are honest, and we are resolute. We're not defensive, and I understand the defensiveness. I understand why people are saying, what about this and what about this? Because if you have to face the underlying fact of this, your life is going to fall apart because you're going to realize you're not the good guys. If you sat around and you defended the mutilation of children, you're not the good guys. If you sat 600, 700 cases of harassment against Republicans and you said, but what about this? What about this? And then you see this murder after calling somebody a fascist, you realize maybe I'm not the good guy. That is a hell of a realization to deal with. So Therefore, you have to grasp at rationalizations. You don't have to do that, Jessica. They do. I don't believe you're part of that group, but why the hell do you have to mimic and echo that crap to us? He was a patsy. That guy was a patsy. He was under the hypnotic spell of a direct-to-consumer nihilism, the trans cult, and you know that. If you can decide that biology is false, you can agree that murder is okay and that humanity is expendable. How you cannot see that alone and see that for what the evil it is without having to attach all of these other things is beyond me.
I just want to be clear, and I want to let people speak. I in no way intended at all to minimize what happened to Charlie. I was horrified by it. I have not been on the five
but
since
the two
then,
sides argument, well, it's like pig Latin to a duck.
No. All that I was saying is could we have all of the information before you just say they did this? Because that is a broad brush to paint with this. And this kid
Let's have a conversation.
No.
Charlie had a conversation. He got shot. Look, I'm sorry, Jessica. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You weren't here for a week. You came in here and it's cold. And I'm sorry, but this is a story that is immune to news cycles. It's immune to rationalizations. It's immune to bias. This thing is with us for good. And we all have to deal with that. So that means we can't live by the same arguments that you might be reading about relativism among the media. We can't deal with those stories. It doesn't matter. The media is dead to us on this story. They built this thing up. We're dealing with it. We're going to act. We don't care what the whataboutism is anymore. That shit's dead. Sorry. For the swearing as well. I apologize to the American public. I'm going to shut up for the rest of the show.
I don't think I can defend Jessica Tarlov anymore. And it's a shame because this is what I say every single time I cover her. She is a workable liberal who has a good working relationship with the other members of the Five. That is very hard to find in the American media sphere. A workable liberal who can talk and reason with other conservatives. But this might be the dumbest thing she's ever said. And she's had some terrible takes before. Notice that she backed off of her initial comment saying, what about the Minnesota lawmaker? And this brings up another big issue that I've seen, and I've lost a couple of friendships over this as well. There was a meme that got passed around a couple of days after Charlie Kirk's assassination, and it listed out all these other attacks by alleged right-wingers, and of those people who had committed these attacks, of one which was the Minnesota lawmaker who was quite literally executed by a deranged Tim Walz supporter. The way this got painted up and then immediately got shoved under the rug. The mainstream media tried to make this into an issue about Trump supporters being crazy, and the moment they started looking back across the veil, when they started looking at this dude's history, when they started looking at what this man actually wrote in his own manifesto, the story died. Same thing with the Shapiro burning. Apparently, the part of the governor's mansion out in Pennsylvania was burned. By the way, Governor Shapiro, I actually like this dude. Strangely enough, there are two Pennsylvania Democrats I like, or at least respect. Shapiro's one of them. And I'm not from Pennsylvania, by the way, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because Jessica Tarlov tries to bring this up and say, well, what about these violent incidents? And the moment you put any scrutiny on those, you start seeing narratives that go against what the mainstream media constantly spews. Nearly every single time, or else they keep waving the bloody shirt. Waving the bloody shirt, that was a term that came around, I believe, after the war between the states. I know for sure that it wound up becoming a thing after the war. I don't know if it was a phrase before, but the origin of it was the radical Republicans, as they were called at the time, constantly reminded their voter base that the Democrats were responsible for the war between the states, and you need to keep voting for us. And eventually, voters got so tired of it that they voted Democrat in droves. Because us Americans, we don't believe the constantly pushed narrative. Eventually, you push a narrative too much, you're going to get pushed back in a different direction. Even if the narrative is true in some cases. This happens all the time throughout history. And the reality is, in this case, Jessica Tarlov is trying to change the debate from why is it that we seem to find these Antifa cults grooming people to have these insane opinions who wind up doing just terrible, violent things. Why does this keep happening? Well, the answer is very, very simple. Folks, if you have children, keep them off the internet as long as possible. Literally use it for Google, and that's it. Okay, maybe some YouTube, maybe some streaming. Keep them off social media as much as you possibly can. And keep them away from Reddit at all costs. There are places that will become echo chambers that will cause your brain to completely melt. Reddit, Tumblr, Blue Sky, these sites have enabled liberal nonsense. And I mean liberal as in sort of the American center as it used to be, all the way to the left. Okay? I'm not talking about the whole term of liberal. I'm saying that there's a sort of pipeline that turns you liberal and then turns you crazy. And the mainstream media is also a part of this. They keep tapping into this. Because the effect for older, rich white liberals, they keep on getting lied to. And they like it. They genuinely like their narratives because it makes them sound and look like righteous people when they're doing the exact opposite things. When they keep voting for terrible politicians because they feel guilty about their success, but they don't want those same problems in the cities inside of their own neighborhoods. It's literally a not in my backyard, a NIMBY attitude. And then their kids get hyped up on this nonsense. They already have a terrible structure in place for their own mental framework and voting framework, and then you release them out to these colleges and these universities? Guess what's going to happen every single time? Your kid's going to come back fairly radicalized to some degree because there was a pipeline set in place, and that's our early education system, folks. This is bigger than just the media. It's bigger than Hollywood. It has gotten to a point where even our local elementary schools have been ideologically captured. And Jessica Tarlov is wanting to have a conversation. She's looking in the wrong place. Because this conversation has already been had and the conclusion has been decided without an actual debate. That's what happens in these leftist spaces. That's what happens on these college campuses. And these children are groomed for this. And meanwhile, Tarlov is going to talk about, you need to focus on all these other things. Well, we did. We did, and it was so unpalatable to the mainstream media and their audience that they bury these stories every single time. But they can't bury this one about Charlie Kirk. This one's too obvious. It's too out in the open. The receipts are there. We've seen what the alleged assassin has said multiple times. We've seen the descent into madness. And Tarlov does not want a conversation about that. The mainstream media does not want a conversation about that because it means that they were complicit in it this whole time and they paved the way for it. So no wonder Greg Gutfeld lost his cool. He's usually funny. This time he's not. This was the maddest I've ever seen him, and I don't blame him. Jessica Tarlov needs to be a little bit smarter next time. But that's what I think. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. My name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on PolitiBrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Until then, y'all have a good one.